All right, let me call the open meeting portion of our meeting together. And it is now about 7:10 by my clock. This is, for those who may watch this on tape, this is the select board meeting scheduled for Monday, April 25. We started at 6:30 p.m. with an executive session pertaining to collective bargaining matters. And at 7:10, we are now entering into the open meeting portion of the agenda. So we will start with the 7 p.m. First item is a Cracker Barrel liquor license application. There is a public hearing for this. It pertains to a request for a first-time wine and malt beverages common victualler license for Cracker Barrel located at 1795 Andover Street. The formal name of the organization is Cracker Barrel Old Country Store, Inc., doing business as Cracker Barrel. And I would ask for a motion to waive a reading of the formal hearing notice.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Whoops. And because one of the board members is remote, we're going to have to do our votes by roll call. So Ms. Wellman, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. So we are unanimous on waiving of the hearing notice itself. So let me invite, is it counsel?
Yep.
Would you introduce yourself for the record, sir?
Sure. Attorney John Moradian, Democus Law Offices. With me is Kyle Kimmel, the proposed manager of record for Cracker Barrel.
Welcome.
What we're seeking tonight is approval of a new beer and wine license for the restaurant. What this is a part of is Cracker Barrel nationwide, a national company, is rolling out beer and wine licenses at their restaurants. In Massachusetts, I've had the hearings for Sturbridge and Rentham. They've been approved, and we're seeking approval tonight in Tewksbury. It's a new license at the restaurant. Kyle here will be manager of record. The company is rolling out, serve training for all employees who are serving alcohol. Alcohol hours, we're requesting 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday they're requesting at 10 a.m. To 10 p.m. On the alcohol service. So with that, any questions you may have for myself or the applicant? Kyle is kind of familiar with what the program is, so we'll take those.
All right. Let me open it up to members of the board. Anyone have questions?
I'll jump in. We've done this many times with, but this is a brand new license. So I know the business has been there for many years. There's a great reputation in the community, but having a liquor license is a whole other thing. You get a lot of families that come in there. So it's how do you, we read through your application, it seems very complete, but it's like, who has a history of working with bar, or things like that, like who's going to be the bar manager, who's going to be that thing, and who's going to be, who's going to be, who's had the training? Has anybody worked in this kind of industry before, or is there everybody just used to working in a restaurant?
Well, it's basically it's been a restaurant. They're not adding a bar, so to speak. So there's no congregating at a bar to watch the game. It's still the same layout. If someone wants a glass of a beer or a glass of wine at there, that's the aspect there. Kyle, can you talk to how the safety training you guys are going on?
Yeah, just use that microphone if you don't mind, okay? Thank you.
So yes, we have ServSafe certification for all of our servers and managers, also shift leaders. So as far as the restaurant goes, all the alcohol's in the back. We have cages that lock. We have a cooler that locks. It's essentially for who is in charge to be the food manager, but really all of us. It's kind of how we do most things there, is we kind of team up. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We ID everybody. The training talks about not over-serving, looking for warning signs, things like that. It's not an environment, there's definitely no bar environment there. Like I said, there's no TVs. not overly comfortable chairs, if you've been in there. It really is just an option. We're trying to give another option to our guests. We have mimosas and beer and things like that. So take it very serious. This is a little bit terrifying for me. We've got a couple other stores in our district that have already started it, so I know it'll be fine, but take it very serious. It's been a long journey to get here, and yeah, we're excited to get started, but that's kind of overview. I don't know if I covered everything that you wanted to.
Well, particularly when I was going to, I understand the serve safe and the food portion of that. It's who's going to be overseeing and making sure people get laxatives about it. And when you have somebody and it's a big restaurant and people are coming in, it's just, did you cop? And we have this happen in a number of restaurants and locations in our town where they look like they were that age, or somebody looked like that. And do we have, do you have any apparatus for checking for fake IDs? Do you have any things like, do you have like an ID scanner or things like that? That's the kind of information.
At this point, we don't have a scanner. As far as our policy is we card everyone, period. As of right now, we don't have any kind of scanner, but within the training, we've been shown the different things to look for on the IDs. And we always have a front of house manager who's out there. That would be one of our main things we're looking for is, do we see the servers taking the card up? That's what we're looking for. Not just, did you ask, but we want to see it in their hand looking. Yeah.
I don't have a problem. Like I said, I'm just driving
Sure.
it home. So, if there is a problem, I did bring it up.
Anyone else?
Sure.
Mr. Kelly?
Just very quickly, and I saw the push for corporate even a couple of years ago in lieu of COVID. It really hit your business, all restaurant businesses hard, so you're looking for another source of revenue, so that makes sense. And just to piggyback on Mr. Kratman, I'm good at repeating myself. We just actually got we got some establishments that serve minors, and they say all the right things. We caught everyone, we do everything the right way, and here we're going to be faced with as stewards of the license to take action against those offenders. So we can't, to Mr. Kratman's point, we cannot emphasize it enough. We say caught everyone, 70 years old, just like Fenway Park when you're buying a Bud Light, caught everybody. Because the worst thing that could happen is we could see you for a violation, and that's the last thing we want to do. I know it's the last thing you want to do, but it happens. So again, I can't stress that enough. So outside of that, Mr. Johnson, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Wellman, Mr. Mackey?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jane.
Thanks. Thanks so much. I wanted to just comment that the application was complete. I appreciate all the work that went into it. Like Mr. Kelly, I noted your corporate strategy had changed in 2020, and from what I understand, the initial reports from your southern branches were more, the mimosas were pretty popular, and that was a surprise to your CEO. I also wanted to commend your work for your firm and your diversity and inclusion statements that are available on your website. I thought that was a great inclusion for Cracker Barrel to bring forward in recent times. I wish you best of luck in this endeavor, and I concur with my colleagues that you should be very, very careful with the service of alcohol and card everybody. Thank you.
Mr. Mackey?
Thank you. Very briefly, I think you said you hit all the right points. I don't think it's going to be a bar setting. No one's going to be going in there and spending 4 hours drinking mimosas. I would recommend getting a scanner. It is just it's a good backup if you have some younger staff members that maybe may not have seen a lot of fakes or they've only been through the training. It's a great fallback if there are any questions. Not a requirement, recommendation. Other than that, again, great application. Everything was here. I hope we can improve this for you guys tonight, and wish you continued success.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, I have no further questions. My colleagues have covered the ground that I would have wanted to address as well. So let me ask at this time if there's any members of the public that have any questions, because this is a public hearing. And I don't see anyone here to do that. With that, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson votes aye, so the public hearing is closed. So can I ask for a motion to dispose of this matter?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Cracker Barrel liquor license application as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All those in favor? Nope, I can't do that. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And the chair will vote aye as well. So we will approve that license 11 to 10 Monday through Saturday, 10 to 10 on Sunday.
Great.
And we wish you well and certainly encourage you to be very careful. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
All right. All right, next item on the agenda is Tewksbury Deli King Restaurant. And are you here on that too, Counselor?
I'm here if any questions. I represent the seller, my office does.
Okay, so we all have communication from your office, Counselor, regarding this, and apparently there was a pending transaction that would have changed ownership. I think we reviewed the license changes previously and may have approved them, and
Right, so
that deal has fallen through.
The transfer was approved by your board and the ABCC, but before consummation, the deal fell through.
Yeah.
So the license never changed hands, and we're seeking reversal of the transfer.
All right. So everything presumably would return back to the Tewksbury Deli King Restaurant.
Right, and the ABCC asked for letters signed by both parties, which we provided.
Yep.
All you need to do is submit a revised approval form to the ABCC.
Okay.
And I told Janine and Christine.
All right. Do any members have questions around that? If not, can I ask for a motion to approve the, what's the proper terminology, the rescission of the prior action?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion made and a second. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And I will vote in the affirmative as well, so that'd be a unanimous vote.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, our third item pertains to another request for a liquor license application. I believe this is a little different. It pertains to the farmer's market and a farmer winery license to sell at the farmer's market. So, good evening, sir, and would you identify yourself for the record?
Sure.
I'm Noel Powell. I'm the owner of Aronap Cellars. We're a licensed farm winery located in the basement of my house in Westford, Massachusetts.
Okay.
We do probably about 70% of our business selling through farmers markets as allowed by the state. And we're here tonight. We were reached out and invited to join the Tewksbury Farmers Market for the summer season. And so looking forward to hopefully sharing our farm wine with folks at the market.
Terrific. So just, can you explain to people, are you intending to sell wine to be consumed at the market, or are you selling bottles of wine to people?
It's to be sell bottles of wine for consumption at home.
At home?
At the market, I mean, state law does allow sampling of up to 5 1-ounce samples of wine. So if people want to try the wine before they buy it, right. They can do so. And we do check IDs.
That's a good thing. You obviously heard that. So you currently are doing this at a number of farmers markets in the area?
Yeah, I mean, each year we typically, I mean, over the course of the year, we're in about 9 different farmers markets around the Boston area. This summer, I think if I add it up quick, we're going to be in a total of about 8 farmers markets this summer.
Very good. Okay. All right, so there's a full application for members of the board. It's a little different in nature, but there is a ServSafe certification as well as MDAR information and other data from the town relative to who is managing the farmers market. So let me ask if there are any questions from board members. Mr. Powell?
I just have one, and I was just looking for the section. This is taking place down the Livingston Street.
Livingston Street, yes.
So, do you do this over in Wakefield as well?
We do, yeah.
That's what I thought, I saw you over there. Cleanup, that's in here, set up in the cleanup of what takes place. When I go over to Wakefield every now and then, I see all those barrels, when people just take their stuff and fill it up and bring it over and just, I'm not saying who it is, but when they have their farmer's market over there, they fill the town barrels with all the stuff that doesn't get sold and what goes on. We have a limited staff of who cleans down there. We have thousands of kids that go down that field that use that facility. And those, those barrels and cleanup are made for, we are constantly getting calls for additional services down there. So whatever's being brought down there, and specifically if you're giving out samples, that's what I was thinking. If you're going through a case of the stuff, the last thing I want to do is see a case of empty wine bottles sitting in the barrel. So that's all. I just want to be clear up front that, please remove anything that you're bringing with you to that location, because it is a place where kids hang out, and I don't want to have bottles or something like that left where everything is. We have skate parks, we have this. Kids will be kids. They leave big glasses, bottles of wine, somebody will pick one up and throw it, or something like that, and I just don't want to worry about that.
Yeah.
So just a concern of those type of things, so I just want to make that aware, okay?
Yeah, I mean, my goal for each of our markets is to basically leave our space cleaner than when we found it.
Yeah.
So it's basically, I mean, definitely, any bottle that is emptied, we take home. We take out. We bring a trash can with us so that when people are done with their plastic cup, they can drop it off with us, and then we pack that out ourselves and leave it cleaner than what we found it.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
that's all I have.
Mr. Chair, maybe through you, or the town manager, Mr. Chair, as far as the, Mr. Powell, I did a little research, I'm well commended, well business, and you do a lot for a lot of communities, so looking forward to you doing the same for Tewksbury. What would the date, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Montford, through you, well, I think the date is a seasonal license following.
There are dates in here, Mr. Kelly, let me just find them for you.
June 16th to 29th, September 29th.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
From 4 to 7.
4 to 7.
Yep.
Okay. All right, any other questions? I know that this farmer's market has really taken off in recent years, so from my vantage point, I welcome your contribution to it, and hopefully it'll meet your expectations and certainly the expectations of the community here in general, so we appreciate that. Let me ask if there's a motion to approve the request.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made and a second. I'll do that by roll call. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And I will vote in the affirmative as well. So congratulations, welcome, and we look forward to seeing you this summer.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Good luck. All right, are there any residents who want to discuss any matter before the board this evening? I don't see anyone in the room, so we'll move forward. New business items, we are going to cover the annual town meeting warrant and the special town meeting warrant articles this evening as our next agenda item. And what I'd like to do, because we have Ms. Wellman remote, normally we would take a vote after each article. What I'm going to do is kind of treat this similar to how we approach the town meeting. Typically, I'm going to call out each article. We'll do them one at a time. If you want to discuss that article, please indicate you do. We will have a discussion. If necessary, we'll take a vote on that one article. If I call an article and no one has an issue with it, We'll ask the town manager to explain it, offer his summary comments. But if there's no issues or concerns, what I'd like to do is we'll hold it till the end, and we'll vote all of the articles that have no discussion or controversy that we need to address around them, and we'll vote it at one time by roll call. Is that acceptable to everyone?
Good plan.
Otherwise, I'll go home with a sore throat. So, all right, so we'll start with the annual town meeting warrant, and of course, hopefully, residents of the community know that the annual town meeting is next week, May 2nd, starts at 7:30 p.m. And we'll begin the first evening with section 1 of the warrant, and the first article is the actual results of the annual town election that was previously held. So there's no action required by this board. Article 2 pertains to the salaries of certain elected town officials. So let me just ask there if there's any need for discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, thank you, Mr. Johnson. So, just out of respect to the board, I am planning to bring an amendment to this article. And let me share my thought process. It's pretty simple. If you recall, back in October, there was actually an article, a warrant article, to extend the plan, to limit the planning board 3 to 5 years, and it was voted for the affirmative for the planning board. So in lieu of that vote, I took a hard look at these numbers, not realizing, wait a minute, the Board of Health, they make $405 a year. The planning board, $765, school committee. So what I'm saying is there's a huge discrepancy among dollars across our different boards. So I did mention things publicly, and I'm gonna follow through on it. So for me, it's not about the money, it's about the distribution of money. And I think we really got a hard look with COVID, what it did for the Board of Health, the hours they put in, the hours the planning board put in, the hours the school committee. We all know they had a rough year for many different reasons. So my whole point is simple. We have 20 elected officials, and oh, by the way, just in total, all the dollars that are budgeted, again, it's not an increase, it's a distribution, total $40,905. My thought process was simple. We have 20 elected officials, 5 members for the Board of Health, 5 members for the Planning Board, 5 members for the School Committee, and obviously 5 members for the Select Board. My thought process was simple. Take 16, oh, by the way, just for the audience, the chairpersons, the chairman of each board do make extra. So I'm not gonna go over the costs. We'll obviously, the residents will have this handout during the meeting, but the bottom line is the chairs typically make more money. And serving in the chair capacity, I absolutely unequivocally think and believe that the chair should make, let's call it extra money, because the roles and responsibilities are significant for all the different chairs, and I can attest to that. So my thought process was this. 16 members, elected officials, would make $1,945.25. That would comprise of the overall budget of $31,124. The 4 chairmen, the 4 chairs, would make an additional $500, and again, not net new, just staying within the budget. So each chair member, 4 chair members would make $2,445.25. That would equate, 4 chair members would be $9,781.00. So, I know I'm going very quick, but hopefully that makes sense. Distributing the dollars that are currently spent on elected town officials, balancing it across the board, because I do feel that each and every board and each and every board member deserves that, especially in lieu of what they've been paid over the last X amount of years. So, I know I went quick, but I will pause. Questions from the board? And again, I just threw this at you tonight, so I'm not looking for support or not support. Certainly we can have the conversation, that's why I wanted to bring it up to the board. And again, all I would ask is your support, and if you don't believe in it, that's fine too. But again, this is something I committed to publicly, and I'm going to carry through with it.
So just for clarity, Mr. Kelly, your intention is to offer an amendment at town meeting?
Correct, Mr.
Are you
Johnson.
doing that here?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure we act appropriately.
Okay.
All right. Are there any comments from
I have
Mr.
a
Kratman?
comment and a question for the town manager. When we got to town meeting, I know this was brought up on the floor, and previous selectmen stated that the rates of pay were reduced years ago because the economy changed, and that it was a temporary thing that was supposed to take place. And we mentioned at town meeting, we'd look at it and take a look at it to see if it should be adjusted again. Did we do any work on to look at what it was before, or?
So that was before my time when they were reduced. But I provided the board with a survey that we did of all the, as many as communities that we could on what they paid their public officials. I provided it to the board, and I'm not sure any follow-up action took place.
And I can add, Mr. Kratman, because sadly I was here. The board offered, I believe it was the Board of Selectmen at the time. It may have applied to other boards, I can't say for sure, but I do know that the Select Board instituted a 10% reduction in the rate, and that was about 10 years ago, when the Great Recession was taking place. And
Mr. Johnson?
Yes, Ms. Wellman.
That extended also to the school committee at the time.
Thank you for clarifying. So,
Because I was on the school committee at the time.
thank you. So they have two boards at least, and that was approved through town meeting and in the context of the budget. And it's never been revisited, at least to my knowledge.
So we did the survey, but I've never heard any direction you wanted to raise them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, any other comments on that? Mr. Kelly, as he stated, is not seeking to amend the article this evening, so if there's no other comment, I will put that in abeyance and we'll vote on the article at the end. Okay? All right. Article 3 is the so-called consent calendar. So that contains Article 3-25, and that's to accept various town reports. Article 3-26 allows the town manager to enter into leases or purchase equipment for various town departments, subject to annual appropriations. It's a standard article. Article 3-27 pertains to the annual article authorizing this use of Chapter 90 funds. Article 3-28 identifies numerous revolving funds that need to be approved annually. And that would conclude the consent calendar. So let me ask if there are any concerns or questions for the town manager on the consent calendar items. Okay, so hearing none, I will move forward to Article 4 is the general fund budget. Mr. Montori, you want to offer some high-level comments on Article 4?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the annual town meeting budget. The budget was presented to the Board of Selectmen in January. The bottom line budget number has not changed. The Finance Committee conducted their review of the budget from January through the end of March, held a public hearing on the budget as well as warrant articles, have adopted the budget have approved the budget as presented in the warrant. The town budget prior to allocations is $129,294,483. That's an increase of $3,054,717. The town budget will be increasing prior to allocations $1,591,028, and the school budget will be increasing $1,464,255. The budget, again, at a high level, includes cost of living increases for employees of 2.25%, adjustments to longevity and other contractual obligations. There are no new hires built into the budget. There are vacant positions that will be filled, but there are no additional employees within the budget. The operating budgets within the town show a net decrease, and a lot of that's because we had a big decrease in the streetlight budget this year. We paid off a short-term borrowing that paid for the conversion of streetlights to LED, which saved us a substantial amount of money. That was a savings of $400,483. So that provided a net decrease in operating expenses. But we did see some areas of the operating budget that did increase, such as solid waste collection and disposal increased $134,575. We had an increase this year to fuel within the DPW of $59,350 because we're anticipating a large increase in fuel in the upcoming year. We have an increase in elections, both on the operating side and the salary side because of the number of elections next year, but also the cost of elections to meet all the new requirements for elections. Just jumping back to salaries, salaries will increase $745,065 again, mainly because of the cost of living increase of 2.25% and any other contractual obligations within that area. Unclassifieds saw a budget increase of $853,990, mainly in the area of health insurance. For the town, this is on the town side, which saw an increase of $61,471 because of a 5% increase to our premiums. We saw a large increase in Middlesex retirement of $503,043, and that's based on the actuarial valuation that is conducted for the town. Within the unclassified budgets, we did have an increase of $210,000 in the area of debt service to add funds to the money set aside for the DPW school maintenance facility. Those funds have been set aside for a future borrowing to be brought forward in October. Property and liability insurance increased $92,451. That was a 10% increase to our premium on the town side, but also it included the full year of the new fire station. Just quickly on the school side, their $1.4 million increase had an increase of $959,155 for salaries, again, which included their cost of living increase and any other contractual obligations. The school operating budget increased to $140,743. Major areas of adjustment were things like technology, specifically any device replacement and security upgrades. And then fixed costs was similar to the town. Their overall fixed costs increased $364,357, mainly in the area of health insurance, Middlesex retirement, and property liability insurance increase. Shawsheen Tech had an increase of $526,329 this year. That was due to the number of students going there and just the increase in their budget. Essex Aggie had a decrease of $9,317, and then the town and school exempt debt saw a decrease of $517,578. And that's a high level on the budget.
And you've reviewed this budget in its entirety with the Finance Committee during the annual process, is that correct, Mr. Chair?
That's correct, and all department heads met with the Finance Committee on their budgets.
The Finance Committee, I believe, already met, and they voted in the affirmative on this particular article?
They did.
Okay. All right. Any questions for the town manager on this article?
I do.
Mr. Kelly?
No one else wants to go first? Okay.
You're up.
All right, Mr. Montori, so we have an increase roughly north of $3 million, and I might get off my soapbox here for a minute or two. You and I discussed, if everything passes, I always ask the same question, if everything passes, what's the approximation that taxes will increase if everything does pass through town meeting?
So if everything passes based on the levy increase that would take place, if current values in town stayed the same, if the current shift stayed the same, and the current percentage between residential, commercial, and personal property stayed the same, the average increase would be approximately $190. But we do know there's going to be an increase in home values. We don't know what that increase is going to be. It could be upwards of 10%. So how that impacts the overall tax bill is still unknown, because some bills may go up, much less than that. Some may go up higher. But the levy increase, based on the current values as they sit, would be on average $190. But I think you can expect that to go up beyond that based on an increase in home values.
I was going to bring that up, and just for the record, you and I have been talking about this for quite some time, so I'm not trying to pull any punches, but premise fully, the housing market could go up another 10%. That has to be factored in. And I guess some of my point here, just to talk about the general fund, is around the current state of the economy. Gas, truck, food delivery. You just mentioned gas for the DPW. I don't need to talk about meat or chicken prices, and building materials, and inflation. There's no supply, but there's demand. So you factor all that in. I really challenge you hard this go around and say, I'm going to use the big word, the executive word, pivot. How do we, as a board, elected board, again, maybe just this is me, I shouldn't talk on behalf of the board, how do we look at this budget and prepare for the worst? Many times we talk about 2008 in Tewksbury, and prior to that, the financial troubles we were in because of the economy. So I guess my ask to you is, kind of all signs point to buckle up. So within this budget, I know the increase is roughly north of $3 million. There was one line item that I look at in particular. It's around the DPW and the DPW and the school maintenance, and that totals 1.7, let's say $1.8 million. Now, just for the residents, what's the purpose of pulling that out now and not waiting till October? Because if we take that out of the entire budget, I know the tax rate obviously is going to go down, whatever the math is for that $1.8 million. But I guess just for the residents, what's the purpose of pushing that through now, as opposing to wait till October? Because essentially we're really not going to do anything with those
Correct.
dollars if they get approved through town meeting.
No, great questions all around, and questions that we've discussed in the past. I've discussed with each board member with the same type of concerns. So first, in regard to pivoting, in regard to the economy, I think every year when we approach the budget, we build this budget, not just this year, previous years, and in future years will continue, with the ability to pivot, and it's a great word to use, if the economy does change. But we pivot if the economy's good, and we can pivot if the economy's bad. When the economy has been good in the past, we've gone to town meeting and added funds to budgets. If the economy is bad, come October, as we did during COVID, we've adjusted budgets down without hurting any services in the community. And that's how the budget is built every year, from October when we start to May when we finish. That's how this board has wanted the budget to be built. That's how we've done it for the last 10 years, and we've been successful. In this particular budget, just to stay on that particular topic, if we get to August, September, when we're developing the warrant, when we're going to town meeting in October for votes, if all signs point to a downturn in the economy and a problem economy, we can pull the DPW school maintenance facility project. We just won't do it. We know we're never going to put the town in a position that it's financially strapped. So that project can come off the table. Also, as we've done for the last 10 years, and we again did it this year, we never project an increase in our state aid. we always go with the previous year's number, and every year state aid has come in higher. So we're able to use those dollars if we need to adjust our revenue projections, to adjust budgets, to adjust wherever we feel there may be an economic downturn. Right now, all signs are pointing towards an increase in state aid. That'll be available to us for any shortfalls in the economy. So in addition to the DPW school facility in the budget, in state aid, those are two areas we can adjust. Then thirdly, we always take a hard look at our new growth, and we, again, project that in a way that, for lack of a better word, is conservative. New growth this year is at $850,000. We think we're going to come in higher than that, as we have in the past. Some years much higher than we projected. That will also allow us to adjust if there's a downturn in the economy. And again, I'm as worried about the economy as anybody. All of you in your businesses and your personal lives are seeing it too. But we have time to adjust before we make any real major decisions come October. Now, why build this into the budget? Is because we're being fully transparent on what we're doing. I'm not keeping it out of the budget and springing this on people in October. We have put it in the budget this year. We put it in the budget last year. The town appropriated $2.2 million a few years back. We have not shied away or hidden our intentions of doing this project. We've made it a priority. We have brought it forward, and I'm saying in this budget, we are building it in now. We are letting you know now that the funding is in the budget, so there are no surprises come the fall, and that's why we're doing it that way.
Okay, no, understood. And we've never, I think this board, you know, we brought this to the forefront, you know, and like I'll say, I repeat myself, whether if this was a police station, a fire station, or otherwise, the questions are going to be the same. It's not because
Absolutely.
it's a DPW.
No, absolutely. They're great questions.
Yeah, it's just because of the, you know, I'm worried.
And just one other thing, and again, and I'm serious. I mean, these are excellent questions. The other side of that is, I didn't want to be here in October and ask the town to appropriate $2 million for the debt service, and have a resident say, "Where did this come from? Why are you doing this now? You just went through a budget process and you never put that in there." This is like so we get it the other way too.
Sure.
So what we're saying is, right up front, we're putting it in the budget, but we are coming back for the project's approval, for the project's authorization, and these funds will not be spent on that project unless the bond authorization is approved and town meeting approves the plan for that project come October. And that this Board of Selectmen, frankly, has the next several months, because all of you have voiced concerns about cost, about design, about programmatic issues within the project, that we have time over the next few months, once we get past this town meeting and budget process crunch, that you can look at this project and say, okay, looks good, or you want to make changes to adjust pricing, programmatic decisions. So it gives this board time to do that too, because all of you have raised concerns privately about the project that you want to see looked into.
Yeah, final comment, I'll pass it to the board. Like I said, it's not about the DPW building. For me, it's a timing thing, and if you look outside, both, like you said, to my finances as well as the residents' finances, I think now's the time to buckle up and not wait. You know, this is one, I think we can be a little more proactive here, and there's nothing in this budget that's incorrect. You're doing everything you're supposed to do, and it's just my job to question the heck out of it and saying, you know, that 1.8 is a pretty big number in lieu of the way the flag's blowing, in my opinion. I'd rather be dead wrong that, you know, we're not in for it, but I do believe right now we potentially could be in for it, and I want to that's why I want to have the open conversation.
No, I
so
think
like I said,
you're right.
My peers share the same. So I'll pause there. I might have some more questions as we go. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
Any further questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to borrow Mr. Kelly's soapbox for a moment.
So move it over.
So I don't want to derail the conversation and get wrapped up around just the DPW building, but Mr. Kelly asked a very good question about the cost of the overall budget and what it means to the taxpayers. Again, we've had a lot of discussion around this building, and my fear is the cost if we don't do this. If it goes to a debt override or something like that in the future, that bottom line number is going to be much higher than including it in the budget. This is, again, a first to my understanding. I know we've all had a number of discussions with Mr. Montori about this, and we're doing this in a very unique way where we're not looking for that. We're planning ahead, we're putting it in the budget. Yes, 1.8 is a big number, but if you look at the scope of the project, we've already shaved over 10 million through various mechanisms, through cost savings, through redesign, and we're continuing to do that. So I just want to say that my fear is if something like this were to be taken out, what is the cost down the road? And to Mr. Montori's point, we do have the ability in October or in the future to pull this money back if we do not approve the project. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Kramer?
I'm listening to all my colleagues on this. I hear all the concerns and thoughts about what if we do, what if we don't. What I'm seeing that's going around right now in the Commonwealth, it's not if this happens, it's already happening. You see construction that's happening around this area. You know, Lowell's building a high school, and they're $30-something million over because of the way the economy is right now. It's just the cost of construction is through the roof, the cost of steel is through the roof, getting production of doing that, and it's a scary situation of building something. I know something needs to be done with the DPW. We've been all, advocating for improvements. We need a wash bay, we need things like that. My fear is building something and then getting caught up into something of what it is. So I like your, look at it, that we're gonna bring it to town meeting, but I see what's happening out there right now, and my fear is trying to build something in the worst case of the economy. If the manufacturing costs are through the roof right now, and what's happening in the world, production, you can't get people to fabricate things, and we get delays in construction all over the Commonwealth right now, because people can't fabricate, they can't get concrete, can't get things that, we're gonna have difficulties doing the stuff we're doing. And I don't see it getting better anytime soon. So if we do wait, maybe the cost will go down of what may be going on. So we have to take that into consideration.
Absolutely.
Right now, it's at a peak. So a lot of times you don't want to put something off because you're putting it down the road and you're gonna pay more for it. That may not be true. That may be, the economy shifts and all of a sudden the market starts going and all of a sudden rates go to the roof and people start calling in debt. Well, the cost will go down on certain things as well. So we got to take that into consideration as well.
You're absolutely right, and I absolutely agree with you. It's happening now, and that's why the project has been delayed already, because we were at the, as you said, the peak of the costs. Now the question is, are we going to see what's the downturn going to be? And one of the things that we mentioned, and I mentioned in the handout to town meeting, we're going to evaluate what's not just the economy in general, what's the economy in the construction market, right? What is it to buy steel now? What is it how long are we going to wait to get work done? And it's not even just the materials, it's the labor, finding labor, to do the trade. So, there's going to be a lot of research, a lot of discussion on the impacts in various areas of the economy. But you're right, it's happening now.
Ms. Wellman, do you have any comments before I offer mine?
Yes, just really briefly, I appreciate Mr. Kelly and Mr. Kravitz's comments. I concur with Mr. Mackey's comments. And just as a reminder, this town built the high school during the Great Recession. This town came forward and saw that need and funded that need in perhaps the worst recession that we've seen. And I think that will be much worse than what we may be looking at now. So I think the approach that the manager is taking, and tangentially this board, to bring it forward to town meeting, to be transparent about how we're going to fund it, and we've been transparent over several years. The town has enthusiastically supported these efforts, is the way that we should go. I strongly support the manager in this effort. There's no question in my mind that we need to be prepared to take advantage of a market with labor, with construction, when that situation changes. And so I I don't think we should kick the can down the road. I support this article. I support these funds being put forward. To fund it now within the levy limit is a unique opportunity for this community. It speaks to the tremendous financial management that we've seen with Mr. Montori over the years through all the projects that we've built. And I think also, it also will speak to our bond rating when time comes. So thank you, those are my comments.
All right, thank you. So I'm gonna come at it a little differently. The first comment I'm gonna offer is the budget we're discussing, Article 4, is a little over $129 million. And all the comments at this table so far this evening predominantly are about 1.8 million of that 129 million. So when you look at the totality of what we're discussing, I want to commend the town manager, because what we're talking about is plowing our roads, fixing our pipes, educating our kids, doing all the things that we need to protect our residents through the public safety services that are offered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Literally delivering water to your faucet. All of those things are embedded for the most part in this budget. And I don't want to lose sight of the good work and the services that we've worked hard to improve and provide to the community over one item in the budget. I'm concerned about that. I also appreciate the concerns that have been raised by my colleagues, and I would say that this is a good opportunity for people to step back and think about how this process unfolds. We go to town meeting in May, we adopt a budget, we come back in October and we make adjustments as necessary. The process has that built-in safeguard. And then, and only then, do we as a board in November come back and set a tax rate and determine the split that needs to be made, if any, between the commercial properties and the residential properties in town. So we have another bite at the apple to kind of balance out the equities that are in front of us at that given time. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have the ability to predict what the picture's gonna look like for us in November or even in October. But what I do know is that when I first got on this board, God knows how many years ago, we were criticized for not thinking ahead. We were criticized for not planning ahead. And what we have in front of us is exactly that. It's planning ahead. Nobody is saying we're doing the project. What we're talking about this evening is planning ahead to potentially do the project. And that will be decided in October when we have a better picture of what's in front of us. That's called good fiscal planning. If we neglect to do that tonight or at town meeting next week, then we're doing exactly what we were criticized for doing 10 or 15 years ago, not paying attention to the future. We have learned the hard way to change our ways. And this is an example. It's calling us to assess that and to stand up and be counted yet again, in my opinion, to follow the plan. And we have terrific financial policies, and when some folks disagree with that, I would challenge them to talk to other communities that are perceived to be well-run, because they're the ones who are calling us saying, your budget's the most transparent, your budget is the best prepared. Everything is out there, and we're getting credit for that, and that's the credit that goes to the fine financial people and the town manager on our team that make that happen. And it's been supported the last 10 years over and over and over again at each respective town meeting. Everything we've asked for, the residents, for the most part with very little debate, have said, we trust you because you got it right. In my opinion, this is no different. What we're doing here is saying, let's put a placeholder in play, and if we need to adjust in 3 or 4 months, we will do that. That's all we're doing here. And I think we would be doing an injustice to the residents of this town if we didn't do that in this budget right now. Particularly as Ms. Wellman indicated, we're not seeking to do a debt exclusion. We're potentially seeking to do this within the levy limit itself. So I know Mr. Montori, in response to Mr. Kelly's question, talked about $190, but that's all smoke, because the shift could be changed, property values, as you said, could be changed, all kinds of things can be adjusted. We can't rely on that. Are my home values gonna increase? If I had to bet, I'd say absolutely. And guess what? That's a good thing for people. So I might have to pay more taxes, but my house, when I sell it, I see neighbors selling a house for nearly twice what they paid for it 8 or 9 years ago. I don't know how you can complain about that. So it's difficult for some, and we have other articles to help give relief, but we have to keep that in mind as well. So there's plenty of time to discuss it. I, like Mr. Kelly and Mr. Kratman and Mr. Mackey and Ms. Wellman, have spent an enormous amount of time with the town manager on this particular DPW project or topic. But I don't want to lose sight of the $127 million that we're actually going to recommend to town meeting, because that is the nuts and bolts of what our community is all about. So I'm all for what you've developed here. That's all I'll say right now. All right, at the risk of belaboring the topic, if there's no other comments on Article 4, we can move forward. Again, we'll come back and take a large vote on everything. Let me move to Article 5, if everyone's okay with that. And this would be the Sewer Enterprise Fund budget. So are there any questions for the town manager on that budget? Okay. If I go too fast, please just interrupt me. Article 6 is the Water Enterprise Fund budget. Are there any questions for the town manager on that budget? And Mr. Montori, before I pause for my colleagues, both sewer and water, you are not, or we are not adjusting rates, right, in any way?
There are no rate increases.
Yeah, okay. All right, Article 7 pertains to the Stormwater Enterprise Fund budget. Any questions or concerns on that? Excuse me. Article 8, Cable TV Enterprise Fund budget. Any questions or concerns about that? Article 9 allows the town to use funds from the stabilization fund for capital equipment and improvements and one-time expenditures. They're identified in the article itself. There's no changes to this article to my knowledge. So we're talking about some dump trucks with plows, a sander, a bucket truck. We need a new fire engine. We have to do a slight renovation at the South Fire Station. And then through facilities and grounds is another landscape dump truck with a plow and sander. And the police department has $130,000 in upgrades. Mr. Montori, are there any supplementary comments you want to make to that?
No, just to make the point that currently there is $11.3 million in the stabilization fund. If all of these if this article is approved, we'll have a little over 9.6 left in the stabilization fund, which is another safeguard of any issues that come up down the road.
Any questions from board members? Mr. Kratman?
Yeah, I just got a quick question.
Yeah.
We're spending a lot of money on vehicles. I understand, I looked at the age of the vehicles and what's going on, some of them's 1999, one's a 2006.
Yeah.
The miles, I guess, probably I have a 1989 bucket. But it's, do we have another bucket truck in the town?
We currently do. It doesn't provide the safety and the flexibility this one does with the type of, like the rubber tires it has and the ability to get into, because a lot of times we're asked to go into people's yards to take down a tree, and we'll have to hire a private contractor with a crane. This allows the staff to do those type of things. So it's a much more flexible and safer truck for us to buy.
So we're spending $215,000 on it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, we need it. How are we gonna maintain it? Like, where are we gonna keep this? Where is it gonna be stored? Is there like the bucket trucks are pretty big.
Yeah, you know, it's going to be stored indoors. We're going to make room within the department and adjust what vehicles probably can be outdoors and things like that. But we're going to house it down at the DPW in the facility. It's going to take us a while to get it, so we'll hopefully at that point have made adjustments down there to house the vehicle, but it will be housed in one of the bays down at the department.
There's a couple, you know, the six-wheel dump truck with the plow, $230,000. It's a lot of money for a vehicle. And we need it for snow and ice operations, I get it. And I'm hoping that it actually comes with, the liquid calcium tanks, or something like that provides with it, or something like that, where they're able to use those type of things. And overall, maybe something will stop paying for itself.
Right, that's a great point.
It's just, where we're storing this equipment, I think we have to make sure that if we have old stuff, we're getting rid of the old stuff.
We are.
So we're making room to store the new stuff.
Yeah, we're trying our best with that.
I've been to DPW, I've toured it, we've all been down there, and we know the condition of the DPW. But when I get down there a lot, I see a lot of the older vehicles still there. And so, it's like, okay, well, the new truck's out here, and the old one's sitting inside.
Yeah, no.
So,
Yeah, no, it's a great point.
No, I like to make sure we get rid of some of it. If there's old things, get rid of it, move it, whatever we need to do to make, we've taken care of what we're spending this money on.
I agree with
It's a
you.
very large investment.
I agree with you.
All I have in comments.
Mr. Chair, just offer quick
Kelly.
comments. When the residents, when these get mailed out, you know, they might seem like little ticket items, but I can say, you know, just like the entire budget, you know, when I sit down with Mr. Montori, I do question all these, because again, to the average resident, 110,000 is a bunch of dough, and I can honestly say you always have a compelling case for each and every line item as to why the equipment's needed, from miles to wear and tear, to redundancy, to return on investment, to the backlogs, so I can, you know, at least tell the residents, for these, you know, they might seem like little ticket items in the scheme of things, but I can honestly say, Mr. Montori, you have a compelling case. We went down for each and every line item. You had a compelling case for all of them. And we talked about inventory, supply, and demand earlier. With all of us on our soapboxes, and even to get some of these vehicles, you're looking at 6 to 12 to 18 months lag time as well, on top of it all. So I can honestly say, these may seem like small ticket items. I don't think they are anything. I don't care if it's 30K in our budget, but I want to say you do a good job, and it's commendable that you have so much information for these line items, so I do support these. So,
Thank you. And Mr. Kelly brings up an excellent point where it's going to take us 18 months probably to get these vehicles at best. That's why I want to get in the queue as soon as we can.
So again, it goes to being ahead of it, and thinking about it.
And one other point, Mr. Kelly brought up another good point, which a lot of the detail backup to these items that are in the warrant are going to be in a handout for town meeting. I wanted to get through tonight's meeting with the Board of Selectmen to see, just to make sure there weren't any edits or changes. But either tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest, it'll be on the website with all the backup and explanations Mr. Kelly mentioned.
Yeah, I actually was just gonna follow on that, because we're looking at the handout in draft form. And you have done this now for probably close to 10 years for town meeting. And I know residents truly do appreciate it. It's very informative. And I think it will be very helpful as we advance the discussion for next week. But get that on the website. All right, Ms. Wellman, unless you speak up, I'm gonna keep moving, okay?
I have two quick things.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Regarding the fire engine for $770,000, Mr. Montori, does that include all the equipment that also goes on the engine? Or is it just really the engine and its integral parts?
No, we actually, and I'm glad you brought that up. We actually added to the term, we just didn't put fire engine. We actually added and equipment because it will include the equipment.
Okay. And then my other question was 25,000 for the South Fire Station renovation. And I know the North Station is also needs some work as well, and I wondered if there was any plan for that.
So that's in the 5-year plan. It's either going to be next year or the year after. That's over $1 million worth of renovations they want to do there. So it's just a matter of what else is it was in that 5-year plan that we need to move around. But it's within the 5-year plan for renovations at the North Station too.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, let's move to Article 10, which allows the town to utilize funds from sewer retained earnings for capital equipment. And there are 4 specific items identified. Does anyone have questions on those? All right. Seeing none. Article 11 allows the town to utilize funds from water retained earnings for capital equipment and improvements. And again, there are 4 items identified, the largest being 1.8 million, and that's for, I believe, the Astle Street water tank.
That's correct.
So we have to do some upgrades to the water tank on Astle Street, an important part of our infrastructure. Any comments or questions on that article? All right, moving to Article 12. Article authorizes the town to borrow funds for the cost, inspection, upgrading, improvements, and cleaning of the aforementioned Astle Street water tank. So this is the borrowing article in the sum of $1.8 million. Article 13 allows the transfer of funds available from bond premiums to reduce the amount of exempt debt service principal. It's $44,833. Any questions or concerns in that one? Okay. Article 14, the next few articles pertain to the Community Preservation Fund and are sponsored by the Community Preservation Committee. The Article 14 allows for the purchase of new benches for the town common, $28,000.
And I can tell you, Mr. Johnson, that the CPA committee voted in favor of 4-0, in favor of Article 14.
Very good, thank you. Article 15, a similar article, involves $157,000 from the Community Preservation Fund, and the purpose would be for improvements to the skate park at Saunders Recreation Complex on Livingston Street.
Same deal, Mr. Johnson. The CPA committee voted 4-0 in favor of, and if you've been down there, it's a gem, but it's so, it needs a ton of work, so it couldn't be, it's very timely, it gets done, and it's so great to drive by there and see everyone and, you know, playing hoops in the skateboard park, so it's very dangerous. And I think there was also a resident, I think it's very worthy of noting, is also contributing in lieu of a tragedy, right, Mr. Monterey?
A resident donated funds for a piece of equipment at the skateboard park in memory of their son.
Thank you very much.
I just have one question on that. I'm all in favor of what we're spending the money on, but one of the concerns, we've been down there a number of times, and this was something that we put off, we planned on doing it, we needed additional funds, and it's used quite a bit down there. But one of the things that, while they were doing it, we looked into where it ends and where it happens to catch where the fence is.
Mm-hmm.
The weeds grow and so we brought up the point, when they're doing this over and resurfacing, can we have them take a look at finding a way of putting something out there that reduces the look of it? There has to be something where they can either just pave over that section where so the grass isn't growing up the fence to be 4 feet high and it gives it a bad appearance. The place is beautiful. I like to keep it that way, and so they were talking about putting some netting, some fencing, or something down there to reduce the weeds growing there, because we get calls on that all the time, that it looks horrible, so if we can make.
I'll remind them about that.
All right, Article 16 is a similar article. It involves $45,000 proposed from the Community Preservation Fund for purposes of new bleachers at the football field at the Saunders Recreation Complex.
Mr. Montori, Mr. Chair, through you. Mr. Montori, please keep me honest here. This one was a little bit unique in the fact that typically, we talked about the other two articles and they apply town-wide, meaning anyone and anyone can use it at any one given time. This one's a little bit tricky here because the football fields are allocated specifically to the football leagues. So for this one was a little bit tricky. Make no mistake about it. The visitors' bleachers are decrepit. They need to be fixed, no doubt about it. So it's a town, you know, it's town benches. They need to be fixed, and this is exactly what these dollars are supposed to be allocated for. But the question would be, you know, can the, I don't know if it's the football league, I forget what their name is, but can that league in any way, shape, or form potentially donate any dollars, just like we have a very generous donation to the skating park? Can the league say, okay, the town is willing, we really have to put some dollars up via the CPA funds, but can the league, you know, can they donate anything essentially? Just to show the town, you know, good faith, saying, we're using the town dollars, but we're also using our dollars. So any updates here, Mr. Tewksbury?
So I did speak to the to the president of the league, and once they get closer to their season and look at their finances, they think they'll be able to help with this project, and that will just reduce the amount the town has to spend. So we're going to fund the entire amount, hopefully get a contribution from the league. That'll reduce the amount we have to spend, and that money will be turned back to the CPA.
Okay, and just for the board, like I said, if you visit down there, they desperately need to be replaced. It's a safety issue. However, you can see the concern of the board, just think a little bit broader in the use of these dollars, that's all.
Yeah, and I would just add, as an insurance professional, if, God forbid, one person gets injured, it's gonna cost a lot more than $45,000. So it's money well spent if the bleachers are in a sad shape.
You got it.
I know it's just bleachers, I just want to go over one question on this. So are we purchasing the metal bleachers and then our own people are gonna install them, or what?
No, we're going to have them installed. We're going to have the concrete removed by, we use a local contractor who does a lot of concrete work for us, and he'll be involved in both the removal of the current pad and the installation.
Okay. If we were gonna go down that road, I just know that a lot of things, the tech, like we were talking about the kids going to the tech, they're doing a lot of this work. And I remember them coming and helping out at the high school. They came and they did work over there because we have metal people, we have different things, classes that they go and they do installation, so. But if we're already hiring, it's fine.
Okay, any further questions on that? Did this Community Preservation Committee approve this article?
They did.
Yes, we did.
With those questions.
Got it, okay. All right, Article 17, we're moving on. This is allowing the town to utilize funds considered surplus from the assessor's overlay reserve to fund the Senior Tax Relief Work Program and Veterans Tax Relief Work Program that we established a few years back. It involves a total of $25,000. Any questions or concerns around that article? Article 18 establishes the Tewksbury Affordable Housing Trust Fund allocations, which is required annually. Any questions or concerns about that? Article 19. This is the Community Preservation Committee budget, which is another required annual article delineating the intended use of community preservation funds.
One question there.
Mr. Mackey.
Through you to the town manager. I know there have been questions in the past about the state is supposed to match X%, and that has not happened in the past, or that full commitment hasn't been made.
Correct.
Can you give us an update on how the state is doing that match as of now?
So I think currently we're somewhere in the low 30s compared to what they committed to, which was a 100% match in the beginning. We were as low and a few years ago around 18 or 19%, so we have seen an increase. It just fluctuates every year depending on their revenue stream they have that funds the match. The other thing is many more communities have adopted it, so there's fewer dollars to go around. But the last time I looked, we're in the low 30s percent for a match.
And is, over the past, call it 5 years, have they ever hit that 100% match?
I think in the first year they might have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next article, Article 20, I'm proud that our board sponsored this article, and it seeks to get approval from town meeting to file a home rule petition allowing the town of Tewksbury to increase the exemption for eligible seniors from $175 to $500 based on asset eligibility requirements. So this is to benefit eligible seniors because of increased costs of home ownership. Any questions or concerns around that?
Just through the chair. Mr. Montori, the question came up several times. In lieu of the budget, this does come out of our overrun budget. Was it typically, allocated for assessing property values and whatever? So it's a different budget. The question is, if this is approved, and again, sometimes it takes a year or two through the state to adopt this. Ballpark figures, how many will qualify? How many qualify today versus how many would qualify when this gets passed through the Commonwealth? In lieu of budgetary talk, what would be the increase? And the same question applies, I think, because we talked about the numbers, and the same question would apply for Article 27, please.
Yeah, let me just pull those figures up. So for the seniors, right now on average, we have 24 residents who take advantage of the program. We project that increasing to, say, 72 people. And at $500 with the increase in the exemption, the impact to the overlay reserve, the overlay would be $36,000. Compared to now, it's around $4,200. So we think the overlay could handle it.
Okay.
But we know that's just, on average 24, we just figured that number could triple based on increasing the amount of eligibility. I'm hoping more seniors can take advantage of it, but we'll have to see.
And to Mr. Johnson's point, one of the proudest pieces of work that we've done as a collective board, so thank you to them. Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Yep, no problem. Article 21, very similar. Adjust the exemption for veterans in the same way. We're asking town meeting's approval to file a home rule petition, and that would increase the exemption from $400 to $600. And again, I commend my colleagues, past and present, for supporting this. Any questions on that? All right, Article 22 allows the Board of Selectmen to accept a new sewer easement at 935 Main Street, and the cost of relocating the sewer main at this location is going to be the responsibility of the grantee, not the town. Any
Correct.
questions on that? Is that the former police station?
That's the former police station lot.
Okay. And Article 23 pertains, I believe, to the same location. It's terminating an easement which would be replaced by the new one from Article 22, and it relocates the sewer main at, again, 935 Main Street. Any questions or concerns about that article?
I don't have any concerns about the actual article, but I do have some concerns about the timing of this. We're resurfacing this section of roadway. And if this goes through, is this gonna happen prior to the roadway?
Yeah, it's ready. It's ready. They're just waiting for this to get approved.
Okay. Last thing I wanna do is approve something.
No. Yeah.
We
No,
need to get
you're
it
right.
approved next
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Article 24, purpose of the article is to increase safety on public roadways and removal of any vehicle that's being stored on the public roadways. And this is a privately sponsored article. It has to do with recreational vehicle storage overnight. So I don't know what the town's pleasure is on that. It's a privately sponsored article. Just want to mention that.
I just have a quick question on that. I know it's a private article, but I do have a couple of concerns if there's boats and trailers and things that this is mentioning, and we can have it towed or removed by the police department, where does it all go?
Excellent question.
No, it's just,
Yeah,
it's like, do we have to, does it have to remain in town? Does it have to, do we have a contract?
We have a contract with,
towing company?
we have a towing company that would take it to their yard.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. So what I'll do when we finish the warrant is I'm going to call for a vote for Article 1 through 23. I'll ask for a separate vote on Article 24 if necessary. And then we'll go, right now we're going to move to Article 29, which is the second night of town meeting, pertains to the zoning changes. So the Article 29 is the so-called zoning bylaw amendment. The warrant has numerous pieces of information about it. Mr. Mackey and I serve on that committee. And I won't spend a lot of time this evening trying to convince voters to support it, but in effect, we're driving a 20-year-old car that's a clunker, and we need to replace it with a new vehicle. And the zoning bylaw committee has made effort over now close to 5 years to modernize the bylaw and make it a little bit easier for users to understand, to bring it in compliance with current statutory obligations, among many other things. The bylaw failed to pass town meeting last year by 2 votes. The committee went back to the drawing board and made, I believe it's 12 changes between then and now, and those were changes that were effectively advocated for by residents. The thinking being that those were the impediments to getting those 2 votes last time, and we're optimistic that we can get this over the finish line. A lot of the changes, in my opinion, and hopefully town meeting, were very positive and additive to what we had was a very strong foundation. So a lot of people have been involved with this process. There's been a lot of input. The public has given us a lot of feedback. It needs a 2/3 vote. The planning board voted to support it, and I'm hopeful that this board will as well. So let me pause there.
I'd like to say something on behalf of my colleagues, yourself and Mr. Mackey. You guys have been so deeply involved, to your point, the number of open meetings and public meetings. Absolutely commendable, so I'm fully supportive, and I thank you guys leading on our behalf. I can say, when residents get the warrant in the mail, they do ask about Ford 150 trucks, they ask about DP, they ask about everything, and this was a big ticket item. They elect us, again, I'm only speaking from my opinion, they elect us to ask us the tough questions. What about this? What about that? And like I've told residents, this is confusing stuff. I mean, you really gotta know your stuff when it comes to zoning. Very, very confusing stuff, but I do think the body of work, like I say, I don't think there's anything, I would say nothing diabolical within this new thing to say, you know, stop. You know, there's truly nothing diabolical in here. Again, it's my opinion. And to Mr. Johnson's point, you know, just like in the private sector, you always revisit policy and procedures every X amount of years. And to Mr. Johnson's point, this has been forever and a day. And so I think really good you guys have taken your time, solicited a ton of feedback. Nothing's going to be perfect, but I do believe you put us, the town, in a better position to be thoughtful around the zoning, what they look like yesterday and what they look like in the future. So thank you very much. Commendable.
Appreciate the feedback. And look forward to your support next week.
Yeah, you already got it.
Okay. All right, Article 30 is a companion article, assuming Article 29 passes. Article 30 is the associated zoning map that would be attached to the bylaw, and it would be consistent with the changes that were made through the zoning bylaw. If Article 29 does not pass, Article 30 presumably would be withdrawn. Article 31 is a privately sponsored article. I believe it may be.
I believe it's being withdrawn.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll take Article 31 and what was the other one? 24. We'll do those separately. All right, so that would bring us to the conclusion of the annual town meeting warrant. So as I indicated at the beginning of the discussion, let me ask if, can I have a motion to table for a few moments Article 24 and Article 31?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made in a second. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And Mr. Johnson votes aye as well. So with respect to all other articles, with the exception of the two that we just tabled, Article 24 and Article 31, can I ask for a motion to recommend adoption?
So moved.
Okay. So we have a motion made in a second. Thank you, sir.
Discussion?
Mr. Kelly?
I'm gonna be like Bill Parcells, I'm just gonna say I reserve the right to change my mind. So I'll leave it at that.
We always do. All right, so we have a motion made and a second to recommend adoption of all articles with the exception of Article 24 and Article 31. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And Mr. Johnson will vote in the affirmative as well. Okay, let me now ask for a motion to take Article 24 off the table.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So this is a privately sponsored article. Is there a motion on that article?
Make a motion to take no action?
Second.
We have a motion made and a second to take no action. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote on that motion?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And the chair will vote in the affirmative as well. Let me ask for a motion to take Article 31 off the table for purposes of discussion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made and a second. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson votes in the affirmative. Is there a motion pertaining to Article 31?
Motion to take no action.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
We have a motion made and a second. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson votes aye as well, so that would be a unanimous vote to take no action. All right, that brings us to the conclusion of the annual town meeting warrant. Thank you for your patience while we work through that. We'll now move to the special. There's only 3 articles. The special town meeting is going to be held on May 4, starting at 7 p.m. at the high school. Article 1 pertains to the transfer of funds from accounts with a surplus to accounts with a projected deficit, and the specific account and purpose or shortfall is identified in the article. The total sum being moved from surplus funds to deficit accounts is $576,000. Are there any questions or concerns about this particular article? Okay. Article 2 is the annual article that we present to town meeting to utilize free cash in the sum of $600,000 as a set aside for winter snow and ice removal. Any questions or concerns about that? Okay, and Article 3 is a late bill article that typically appears at the special town meeting. There are 5 bills totaling $2,861.08 that remain unpaid, and they require town meeting approval at this late date. Any questions or concerns about that article? Okay, hearing none, let me ask if there's a motion to recommend adoption of the special town meeting articles 1, 2, and 3.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made and a second. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote on that motion?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And I will vote in the affirmative as well. So we have covered the special town meeting warrant. Thank you for helping me work through that without losing my voice. You're welcome. All right, we have just a couple more items to tend to tonight. The Elementary School Building Committee, because of the annual town election, there have been some changes to the committee composition that are being requested or proposed to us. As you know, it's an ongoing project. It's important that we keep the committee fully rostered so that it can continue to do its business. The town manager provided, I think, each of you a memorandum dated today requesting 3 changes. One is to recognize the school committee has appointed Keith Sullivan to be the school committee member on the Elementary School Building Committee. They've also requested that Shannon Demos, former school committee member, be appointed as a school committee designee to the committee. And our former colleague on this board, Anne Marie Stronach, no longer can fill the role as a select board member. The committee is asking us to approve her to fill the vacancy of Jacqueline Stone, who was serving in the educator position on the committee. So those 3 changes are being requested by the Elementary School Building Committee. Are there any comments, questions, concerns about those? If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve those 3 changes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made in a second. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman? Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And I will vote in the affirmative as well. So that leaves a selectman designee as well. We need, because Ms. Stronach has left our board, I want to ask if there's any member of this body who wishes to serve on the Elementary School Building Committee for the duration of the project.
If no one's willing to.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Ms. Wellman?
I'm sorry, I would be interested in serving on that committee at the board's discretion.
Okay, we're not going to ask if there's anyone else interested. We'll just ask for a vote. Mr. Kelly, how do you vote on that?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kratman?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Guess I'll vote aye.
And I will happily vote aye as well, and thank you for your willingness to do that. Thank you. And while we talk about appointments, there are a few others. I know a couple of my colleagues have asked about that. We have some selectmen reps on various committees. I will get it on the agenda after town meeting, and we'll talk about filling or reorganizing, however we want to approach it. Those committee appointments officially through the town clerk's office indicate an April 30 expiration, but I do know that in the absence of a subsequent appointment, those people can continue in those capacities until they're replaced. So we'll take it up in the month of May. I just want to give everybody a heads up so you can think about it. They involve a number of committees that you all know we serve on. So we'll get that circulated on a future agenda and we can take action, okay? All right, we have one town council invoice. Mr. Montori, do you want to speak to that?
Sure, very quickly. I'd recommend the board approve town council's invoice from March 16th through March 31st in the amount of $3,230.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made and a second. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Krebman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And the chair votes in the affirmative as well, so that would be approved. Do you have any other items tonight, Mr. Montori?
I'm all set. Thank you very much.
You? Okay, we don't have any minutes to my knowledge. That brings us to board member reports. Ms. Wellman, you want to lead us off?
I'm going to abstain since I'm remote, and I'll fill everybody in on the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Krebman?
I'm not on any boards.
Okay. Mr. Mackey, do you have anything to report this evening?
I do not.
Okay, Mr. Kelly?
Just 2 items. I'm going to be bringing up through you, Mr. Chair, a couple agenda items, whether it's May 17th or subsequent, where we essentially, they're dealing with 2 kind of traffic studies. One's on North Billerica Road, and the other study was done on Shawshene Street and Arlington Street. So I'm just planting the seed that will bring in traffic safety. We'll kind of review their findings, and we may or may not take action, but I just wanted to plant the seed with you, Mr. Chair, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, very good. And the only thing I'll add is just please, 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 the zoning bylaw committee has worked really hard over a long period of time. We have a meeting this Thursday evening at, I think it's 6 p.m. You,
Double check that.
Yep, I think it's 6 p.m. It has been posted on the website, so you can double check the time, but it is Thursday evening. And it is the last meeting of the committee before town meeting. Any interested party, of course, can attend. Hopefully we will see enough residents at town meeting next week to get final approval of that zoning change. So I have nothing else beyond that.
Mr. Chairman, will that meeting be televised?
I think they're recorded. They're not live meetings, if my recollection is correct. Yeah, they're not live. But we will, the agenda is posted, there are minutes approval from the last meeting in February, and then there's a discussion of the upcoming town meeting on the agenda. Okay, I want to thank my colleagues while we work through the warrants. With that said, our next meeting of this board is scheduled for May 17. I don't anticipate we'll need a meeting before town meeting. But
we'll post it just in case, and you can cancel.
We may post for that, so just I urge you to stay on standby for that. And if there are any items to tend to at town meeting, we'll speak to them then. So with that having been said, let me ask for a motion to adjourn.
So, second.
We have a motion made and a second. Ms. Wellman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Kretman?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
And I vote in the affirmative as well. We're adjourned at about 8:47 p.m. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.